A new official visitor is coming to Boston College this weekend, and it's a defensive tackle that could be a game changer for their upcoming recruiting class.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. I've been covering Locked On Boston College for 5 years here on this podcast, and I've been covering BC for over a decade. If you want the analysis, scoops, and info, you're in the right place. Make sure you check us out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast 5 days a week. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, we are joined by Mike Gaultieri of Lights Camera Sports, who's going to talk about the future of Boston College athletics. He's going to give you his take on where he thinks BC can go, what their limitations are, and why they need to get over that next hump. You're going to want to hear his thoughts. He knows a lot about BC. He's got some interesting takes. But we're going to start it off with more talk about the next week of official visits. Now, weekend number 3 of 4 is coming up for BC in terms of official visit season. This weekend's going to be a little quieter. They have 9 official visitors. 4 of them are already committed. They got a new one on Wednesday, though, and it's a defensive tackle from Illinois. His name is Evan Neal. He got offered on Tuesday, and by Wednesday, he already had an official visit set in. Now, he is a big kid, 6'3", almost 300 pounds, and he really does hit a need that Boston College still has in their class of 2026. This is a position that Boston College is going to need to build depth at, and they haven't done it yet. Because next year, you're losing Owen Stodmeyer, you're losing Quan Williams and Chuck Nadeau, and you lost George Rooks already. Sedarius McConnell is leaving. There's a lot of change going on at the defensive tackle position, both at nose tackle and at that 3 technique spot. They need to build back depth. They've got a few coming in as true freshmen now. You brought in the kid from Wake Forest, Chris Marable. You need to continue to build upon that. You brought it. You're going to have Mac Fitzgerald, who's going to be taking his official visit this weekend as well from Catholic Memorial. He's the son of Craig Fitzgerald, the strength and conditioning coach. He's going to be more of what George Rooks and Sedarius McConnell did, but you also need to continue to build at nose tackle. That's what Evan Neal would do. This is a guy that would do that, and the reason you're seeing this offer come up is because a number of names that BC went after have committed elsewhere. We saw Cam Mallory of Alabama just commit to West Virginia. He was just on an official visit to BC 2 weeks ago. We just saw Jermaine Polk from Ohio commit to Rutgers. He was on campus just a few weeks ago. You've seen a few of these guys, and I think there may be one more that Carmelo McKenzie, who never made it on campus for an official visit, but he committed to NC State. So 3 guys on your board, 3 guys out of maybe 30 recruits before the end of the month are already going elsewhere. Now, you have other names that could go ahead of Neal, if that's what their board looks like, that are coming on campus. This weekend, you have a big one coming on campus. Amir Clark from Plantation, Florida. This kid has official visits to UCF, NC State. He's got a few other, I think Georgia Tech was on his list. Like, he's a good defensive tackle. And I think there's a reason why Mac Fitzgerald just moved his official visit to this weekend, because I think they're going to, I think Fitzgerald could be a great recruiter for BC. So he could be one. But you have to make sure you can't lose at this position this year. You have to be able to close here. So I look at a guy like Evan Neal, and I say to myself, this is a kid that's going to be taking an official visit to Michigan State next week. He's got some decent offers. He's a big body. That's what I love. 6'3", 300 pounds up the middle. That sounds like a good deal to me. I think he would be a solid get too. So it was interesting. It was fascinating how fast the wheels can spin in college football. Like in 24 hours, this kid went from not even being on, not being an offer from BC to getting an offer to already officially visiting BC. And so I'm really interested to see where this weekend goes for him. You have next week too. You have Deuce from Alaska. I'm going to totally butcher his last name, Alamafia, I believe it is. He's another one. Like Amir Clark, Deuce. I think those would be your top two. But maybe you go for 2 or 3 defensive tackles. Maybe you go for a bit more here so you can build that depth. I look at a guy like Evan Neal. That's the kind of guy you need to, at a position you haven't really had success with this summer. You need to build the depth back when guys are committing elsewhere. And defensive tackle is one position that I feel like it doesn't seem clear who the guy is going to be yet. I think Clark has been Amir Clark, the guy coming this weekend, has been one of the big targets that they've had, but he's got a lot of other suitors. You can't just strike out. You need to be able to get those next guys. I think the staff's doing a good job with that. Now, in our second segment, we're going to be joined by Mike Gaultieri of Lights Camera Sports to talk about BC sports. You're going to want to hear his thoughts on everything from basketball to football. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs. The intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you must experience live. And this year's matchups are already delivering. If you want in, Game Time makes it easy to get seats, even for the last playoff games. The biggest ones, too. Prices on the apps actually drop closer to tip-off and killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees. Game Time is a total game changer. It can go from as much as going to the NBA playoffs, or for me, I'm a big Worcester Red Sox fan. I needed tickets, and I ended up going to Roman Anthony's last game. And I needed to get certain tickets. They had them. They had them at a good price. It was all in, too, so I had no surprise fees. Boom, bought them for my family, and I was in my seats the next day. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Welcome back. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. We've had some great guests on, and one that I've been dying to get onto the show is Mike Gaultieri of lightscamerasports.com. He, like me, is a credentialed Boston College media member. Sometimes Mike's over my shoulder in the press box. I can hear him doing his recording. And I wanted to bring Mike on today to talk about the future of Boston College athletics. I want to get his perspective on where BC goes now with a new president, with the House settlement. Get his thoughts on just where BC stands and where they could go. Mike, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, AJ, it's always good to see you in the press box, those special fall nights.
Yep.
I think Michigan State was probably a highlight last year, the football game there. Yep. But no, thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
So Boston College is in a transitional period in more than one way right now, where you have legalities changing, where players are now basically going to be revenue sharing with the school. You have a new president coming in, one that seems to be much more athletic friendly. Where do you want to see BC go in the next couple of years?
Oh, I want BC to win national championships, win the ACC. Yeah, that's what I want. And I chuckle with that, AJ. But one thing you might notice if you follow me on Twitter, I don't want BC and BC fans to settle for. I travel the country, covering sports. I see a lot of schools, and yes, we're not Auburn. We're not, Stanford, but we're Boston College. We have a lot to be proud of as a school, a great location, and there's no excuse why BC can't win ACC conferences. So the goal, how I look at it for men's basketball and football specifically, win the ACC, and then everything will fall into place from there. But you're in a great city, I think Boston's the number 11 media market now in the country. Mm-hmm. Exposure in the Northeast, especially with basketball. You have all those New England prep schools. There's no reason BC can't win and win a lot. That's how I stand. People laugh at me, but you got to remember, AJ, too. I was there from 04 to 08. We had a lot of winning, as I'm sure you know.
Yep. Yeah, Mike, you worked for the basketball team at one point, correct?
Student manager, 4 years, Al Skinner, 04 to 08.
I was a student there during 05, and it was a different experience. It was a must-see weekend. Like every weekend when it was a home game was a big deal on campus. And there's no reason, as you said, BC can't get back to that.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, there's, 04 to 08, as I mentioned, we made the NCAAs my 4 years 3 times. Sweet 16 made it to against Villanova. That loss still hurts, AJ. Oh my gosh, overtime loss to Nova. And then my junior year lost to Georgetown, the round of 32. Freshman year, we start 20-0, number 3 in the nation. We lose to Bruce Pearl, Wisconsin, Milwaukee. That propelled him to the Tennessee job. Bruce Pearl didn't help us out as a BC alum. Oh my gosh. But no, a lot of winning. And I have to look, but how many times did we make the NCAA tournament from 2000 to 2010 or 2009, I guess? The last NCAA tournament appearance of BC Hoops. And this hurts. This is embarrassing for me as an alum. There's no other way to spill it. 2009. I have the date here. March 20th, 2009, a 72-55 loss to USC. That was the last NCAA appearance for basketball. Okay, we're number 3 now. DePaul, in terms of longest droughts, not where you want to be. DePaul 03-04 and Washington State 07-08. They're 1 year longer than us. So that's not where we want to be. And that hurts. That's embarrassing. If I'm the coach, it's just a BC. I think about that every day. I post that in the locker room, and that's motivation because BC has to get back to when we were doing it from those 2000 Al Skinner teams.
Yeah, and you look at the team this year, and there's some excitement. I think they did a decent job in the transfer portal. Guys like Chase Forte, Jason Asamoah, who was a 5-star from Lynn, Massachusetts. I love having local kid to come back. But I think the toughest part is it seems like it's a cycle, right? They lose, no one shows up. It's impossible to recruit and get to the transfer because no one shows up. They need to have that spark soon. Like a year where, as you said, like back in those years where something happens, where someone catches fire, whether it's a Donald Hand or, maybe one of these freshmen that are coming in or a transfer, where it gets the student body excited. It'll make Earl Grant's job easier. You'll get transfers coming in and recruiting will pick up, and then you can get your team back on track. But it feels like right now they're just kind of spinning their wheels, right?
Well, in terms of hoops, yeah, it's there's no way to spin. It's low.
Yep.
Earl Grant, 4 years now. He's entering his 5th year. This is when you're supposed to be churning, going, wins, big time. 61-72 all time, 4 years. Earl Grant. Yep. I mean, it is what it is. He has to win. He's got to make the NCAA tournament this year. I don't know how else to say that. He's a great guy. He's a nice guy. I've met him numerous times. He's upbeat. He's positive. I think he's a good coach. Recruiting has to get better, and he's got to win. Now you'll say, does he have the resources? Brand new practice facility. Does he have the NIL money? Friends of the Heights. There's money there. He's going to say he wants more money. He probably does need more money compared to Duke and UNC, but they're better than 4-16 in conference play. That they have to be better than that, AJ. So you got me fired up. I was student manager for 4 years. I lived in Conti Forum from 2004 to 2008. So it's just there's no other way to say it's painful right now. It's painful. Yep. And you're right. We used to get 8,624. I think that was a sellout at Conti. I remember seeing the stats at the end of each game. That was a sellout. So that believe me, we got that for every game in November, December. It wasn't just Duke and UNC coming to Conti.
Totally.
So, that it's got to get back to that.
Did we lose you? Well, I think we're losing Mike. I was going to say to Mike, hopefully he gets back in. I can pause. So you were saying like the attendance was always jacked up. Like there was always sellouts. I've said on this podcast multiple times, I've been a BC season ticket holder before I was covering and in the press box. My favorite athletic moment is I think it was 2005 when they started 20-0 against Syracuse at home. That game was my favorite moment I've ever been into at a Boston College game. And I think the thing that we're lacking is the students, they don't know what that feels like. It was electric in there. That wasn't something they could not even fathom what it was like in there. And they ended up winning. They were third or fourth in the country at that point, undefeated. It was such a big moment. And, as you said, like, there's untapped things. So my question for you is, what would you love to see this New Balance deal, like this New Balance partnership? There's got to be something they can do here to kind of help build on that.
Yeah, no, I remember that game. It was a Saturday evening, 6:30 p.m. game. I think that got us to like 17-0, as we mentioned. So it was that would be the crowd rushed the court. No, I totally remember that game as well. New Balance, I love it. I love it. Obviously, basketball's had it as well, but football now getting it this next year. BC has to do something different to differentiate themselves. Now, the idea is to be Oregon of the East. That's not quite there yet, obviously, but New Balance, 10 miles away from, maybe 5 miles away from Boston College itself. BC has to get out of the rut. They got to be unique, try new things. And this apparel deal is great for Boston College. I love it. I think, and how about New Balance? Everywhere you look, the French Open, New Balance. I'm watching there. Cooper Flag, Otani. It's just really a rising company. I think more schools will follow. Within 5 years, I think there's going to be 10 schools with New Balance, like Boston College. So I think it's a great home run deal. And like I said, you got to be a little different now. You got to change things up. You can't be Nike, Under Armour. So New Balance, I think it's a home run. And I am excited to see with these football unis and the cleats. Yeah. I think it'll be a really good idea, AJ. I'm happy about that.
I can't wait to see what the uniforms, as you said, look like. And, to be the flagship school of New Balance, hopefully for the future, will be a big thing. Yeah, it gives you a chance to do something really special on a company that's on the up and up. Now, in a moment, I want to talk to Mike a little bit about football. I want to get his thoughts about Bill O'Brien, where he thinks the program is right now, and how do you get back to those levels that they were when they first joined the ACC? I'm going to get Mike's thoughts on all of that in just a moment. Welcome back. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. When you're done this episode, if you're an everydayer, you know of Locked On ACC. Gives you all the inside information on the Atlantic Coast Conference. That's available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, we're joined by Mike Gaultieri of lightscamerasports.com. I'm really excited to talk to Mike and continue our conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about football. This is going to be a big season. Year number 2 for Bill O'Brien after going 7-6. How do you build upon this, and how do you get this team to finally end this 7-win rut that they've been in for 15 years now?
Yeah. I know, AJ. I wrote down the records. 2015, 3-9, 16, 7-6, 17, 7-6, 7-5, 6-7, 6-5, 6-6, 3-9. Last year, 2 years ago, 7-6, and last year, 7-6. So that's all, that's the last 10 years. Now, I do think the Bill O'Brien hire was a great hire. He fits in perfectly at Boston College. St. John's Prep, he went there high school, then played at Brown. His history. We don't have to go. I think you would know better than me. I think his recruiting is doing okay. I would have liked a little bit higher team ranking last year going into this year. To be honest with you, I was a little disappointed with how the year ended last year. Thomas Castellanos quitting on the team was Coach O'Brien, I guess, couldn't do anything about that. That was unfortunate. I was down at Florida State. That was a great win to start the year. I believe it wasn't the record 4-1 after Michigan State. And then to lose that, I was at the Florida State bowl game, and Florida State opened 1-0, then 4-1 after Michigan State. And I just thought 7-6 is disappointing, is what I'm trying to say, AJ. I have to say that. We need Bill O'Brien and the team to have a big year here in year 2. We don't have the traditional now college football NIL, the 4-year waiting period, kind of to get going. You got to move quickly. And football, there's unlimited potential, just like really men's basketball. Boston College football can win and should win the ACC. They should do it. It's a great program. There's no dominant program like a Clemson 5-6 years ago. There's no, and I go back to our time, 2 ACC championship games in football when we were there. Obviously, had a quarterback named Matt Ryan, but that helped. But it can be done. And I want to just, that's my biggest point. I want BC fans to believe because, like I said, I travel across the country. Boston College is a great school, great campus, big time city. There is no reason why what Doppel Sweeney has done at Clemson can't be done at Boston College for the next 10 years and with Bill O'Brien.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that they can definitely, what they need to do is they need to hit lightning in a bottle. So like Dylan Lonergan, that quarterback they just brought in, like you get him for 3 years. You mentioned Matt Ryan. What you have a quarterbacks centric coach, right? Bill O'Brien has the history with Tom Brady, Deshaun Watson, all that good, Bryce Young. He is a quarterbacks coach. What wins? Quarterbacks. You get a good quarterback, you're going to win football games.
Yeah, no question.
So, right? So you're building right now a quarterbacks room that is getting better and better every day. It really is. Like the fact that you're going into next year, you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't know who's going to go because they're both really good or playing very well is probably the best sign that we've had in years. Because you can go out there with Grayson James and win. And you could probably, I would say with Dylan Lonergan, his ceiling might be even his ceiling, I think, is definitely higher. So I think that will be a big piece. And you're right too. Like there isn't really Clemson's getting back to where they were. But you can catch them. You can catch, Miami. I'm not sold on Miami yet.
No.
Florida State. Yeah, good luck with Tommy. SMU, I think BC could. I've said it on this podcast. I think BC could beat SMU this year. I really do. So it's not that far. I really don't think it's that far removed of what you're saying. Like the BC could get themselves back to be a top 25 team, to get themselves in the conversation every now and then, and get in that. As you keep saying, right? Winning's going to get if winning fixes everything, it really does. So. Any last thoughts about BC sports before I let you go? Go.
Yeah, this is obviously a pivotal time. One more year of Father Leahy and then Father Jack Butler. That will be the question. How big a priority is sports? Is BC fully locked in? This recent the settlement, the $20.5 million schools can pay athletes right from the school to the student athletes. How will that shake out at BC? That's like any organization, Bob Kraft, the Patriots, Jeremy Jacobs, the Bruins. If Father Jack Butler now, it starts from the top. It trickles down. That's how well your organization. What were the Patriots before Bob Kraft? Nothing.
Right.
So you really, that's why I'm most interested, AJ, next couple of years to see how it plays out. And BC sports, we're probably a little biased. I think it's the front porch of the school. It's what people talk about, what brings alums back to school. So I don't think there's a higher priority other than education than athletics for the school and the priority. So BC has to be all in. They're in the ACC, a big-time conference. That's just one notch below the SEC and the Big Ten. New practice facilities, football and basketball, men's basketball and women's basketball. I just think it's got to be all in, and the goal has to be ACC championship. So I'm excited to see how this all plays out, and I'm excited to see how Father. Yep.
So this was great. I'm so glad to have Mike Gaultieri of lightscamerasports.com here on our show to talk BC sports. Obviously, he cares greatly about Boston College, and so you can follow Mike. Where can people find your work, Mike?
Hey, AJ, thanks so much for having me on. Lightscamerasports.com, lightscamerasports.com, all the podcasts there. We really get going in the fall. Scott Mutual comes on a bunch. It's a lot of fun times. But this is fun too, AJ. I appreciate having me on. Let's do this again. Maybe the season gets closer.
Absolutely. I love having you on, Mike. Your energy is infectious. And check him out. You can find him on Twitter. You can find him on Instagram. Mike's everywhere. Mike is my favorite thing about following Mike is seeing all the different places he's going for work. So, Mike, you work for CBS, right?
Yeah, I do a lot of work for CBS. So CBS events. We're in the golf swing right now, and then we do NFL games, a lot of college hoops. And that's the other thing, AJ. I'm at the Sweet 16. I'm at the NCAA tournament. I'm sick of watching other people's schools. I was at that game I was in Providence watching St. John's, Arkansas, Coach Calipari versus Pitino. I kept on thinking, I want Boston College to be in Providence, the NCAA tournament. You know? It's time. It's been too long. So we got to get BC hoops Both men and women back in the NCAA tournament, and we got to get BC football in the ACC football championship game, and then that will take it right to the playoffs for college football.
Mike's got the plan ready, and so you can check him out. Make sure you check him out at lacecamerasports.com. Check out his podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. I'll be back again tomorrow with Mitch Wolf of Eagle Insider as well. We're going to debate some big BC topics, talk about where things are at with Boston College, my thoughts versus his thoughts. It's an episode you're not going to want to miss. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you all again soon for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.